Our place, this place, your place. The outlook for New Bern's future is made possible by the generous support of the Craven County Community Foundation, an affiliate of the North Carolina Community Foundation, Carolina East Health System, and by the financial contributions of viewers like you.
It's interesting because what I'm going to talk about here and what oftentimes is existent in communities is change. There's two things, time and change, that I kind of think of that are pretty constant. And every community experiences their form of change or their issues or the need for community involvement to facilitate change. And it's interesting, and I'm very happy that Public Media North Carolina decided to come to New Bern, but I found it very interesting that the first community that they went to do this was actually Hickory, North Carolina, where my hometown is from. I don't know if there's any other people from Hickory originally that is here, but so I may be the unique one in that Hickory was the first, now New Bern's the second, and I actually have ties to both. In Hickory, they spoke about early childhood education, so they recognize that education is a key component of their area. A lot of that stemmed from some of the issues that Hickory experienced a decade ago, and a lot of that, or maybe more, a lot of that stemmed from the furniture and the hosiery industries leaving Hickory to go overseas due to lower wages and things like that. Ultimately, what that did is it created a situation to where a workforce had to be retrained due to a changing market, a changing workforce need. And so I think they've identified now that early childhood education and workforce development, I think some of the programming that was done, Shannon, correct me if I'm wrong, was based upon the change in technology-based type industry and manufacturing. And they have to ensure that their workforce is trained and developed to provide a stable workforce to make their community thrive. So I think that was some of the discussions that were had in Hickory. Here we are today in New Bern, once again discussing workforce development, as you saw, and education as part of our panel. So that's a key component takeaway. And we also talk about our community and economic development. When we started our initial discussions about what we were going to talk about here in New Bern today, we were very interested in talking about community and economic development because it's one thing that is consistent across all municipalities and counties or cities or whatever, that there's going to be those opportunities where a community needs to step in and create community and economic development opportunities. So hence the reason why we've had some panels up here on the community and economic development. I think New Bern in its 300-year history has proven itself worthy of being able to speak about that with the revitalization of certain areas of our town. And we continue to do that today through as what we have discussed with the Choice Neighborhoods Initiative. I will say, though, that some of my issues with where we are in discussing this is that we are reactionary in what we want to do. We're reactionary in this change that we want to happen. Change is constantly happening. I think what we really need to charge our leaders and champions within these communities is to recognize stagnation rather than blight and things of a negative nature. Stagnation is the predecessor to decline within a community. And that's the thing that we really, truly need to recognize, in my opinion. That's where we're going to be able to make a difference. And when we do that, hopefully, we won't be in these situations where we're talking about revitalizing or redeveloping an area. Basically, at that point, we are adjusting ourselves to change. We talk about a Phoenix group. Why do we need to, and I'm not picking on the Phoenix group, I'm just saying, why do we pick up a Phoenix? Because we're rising from the ashes. Why do we need to rise from the ashes? Why don't we act more like a chameleon? Why don't we change based on the environment we're introduced into? If we're on a limb, we're brown. If we're on a leaf, we're green. We need to be able to accept that change and adjust accordingly so that we can better our community. I would think, my job, by the way, as a city manager, is to stay as apolitical as possible. But just for a second, I'm going to digress into politics. Our country, our state, individually, as you sit in your churches, you may discuss things, or at the breakfast tables. Our nation has never been more polarized than it is today. And you can look at the statistics, you can look at the graphs. It's never been as polarized as it is today on issues and party affiliations and so forth and so on. Unfortunately, oftentimes it takes very negative events to bring that polarization back to a norm. The key component of that is learning to overcome our differences. And I think a lot of it may be related to somewhat of the introduction of social media. People can text or hide behind text and not experience the one-on-one feeling of how someone interprets what you're saying or how someone feels about a certain thing, because there's the separation of a computer and a keyboard from actual feelings and that uncomfortable nature. People may be trying to avoid the uncomfortable nature of a conversation about a difficult subject. And so ultimately, I think today, as I said, we really need to not necessarily focus on Duffy Field and the Choice Neighborhoods Initiative, but more about our community as a whole, our city as a whole, so that we can focus on change, focus on listening, and focus on relationships with people so that we can come to consensus, make educated decisions about that change that we want to make that's for the betterment of our community. I would like to thank you all for coming. I found extreme value in being here today. I hope that you did as well. And I would really like to thank Public Media North Carolina for their participation and involvement with us in picking New Bern as its second location. And I can't wait to see the final product whenever it's done. And just so you know, things that we're looking to do in the future, I think Alderman Bingle has been working and discussing with Public Media North Carolina about the possibility of doing a summit where potentially we could pull together, say, the City Council and some of the leaders of Hickory with some of the leaders and our boards here in New Bern to collaborate together to try to look at opportunities for us to have lessons learned from each other. Because I can tell you, I lived in Hickory, I've lived in New Bern now for almost 8 years, and there are a lot of similarities, but there are differences. And those differences and those similarities are the things that we need to share so that we can learn from our past, learn from our history, and try not to make those mistakes again. But I do challenge each of you as leaders, because you wouldn't be in here if you weren't a leader, and you wouldn't be in here if you did not want to see change in our city. I challenge you to go out there and listen and be there for that change, okay? I had a little exercise. We'll do it real quick, and it won't take but a second, but everybody in the room, if you would, just close your eyes for maybe 15 seconds, okay? Close your eyes for 15 seconds. I want you to picture what you see New Bern like in the future. Okay? Thank you. I will guarantee you there are 280 different ideas in this room right now. And what I challenge you with is to get together, collaborate, and work together to try to come to consensus. And do so not in a polarized way, but in a way in which we want to better our community.
Our place, this place, your place. The outlook for New Bern's future is made possible by the generous support of the Craven County Community Foundation, an affiliate of the North Carolina Community Foundation, Carolina East Health System, and by the financial contributions of viewers like you.